Welcome to another podcast about geek culture in a medium already saturated with everything nerds love and crave. It's the Lunatic Parade Podcast. Fuck this, let's do it! Do it!
Hello and welcome everyone once again to another episode of the Lunatic Parade Podcast, brought to you by First Table Gaming. I'm Trent Raber. I'm here with
Tim Franks.
That's right. It's just the two of us today. You get the dynamic duo today. We're going to see what's going on and what we got on our minds. So what do we want to talk about today, Tim?
Let's delve into the world of video games.
I like that idea. Video games are awesome.
They are. They are a huge part of our lives. Even back in the day when they weren't cool. I mean, they were cool to play, but if that was the thing that you did, like, what do you do? I play video games. Like, it was not cool to be like,
right.
That's all I do. And,
right. Everybody back then had like a Nintendo or an Atari. Most people did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, you know, when you played video games, it was like, yeah, I got to sit down and I played Mario Brothers for a couple hours. It wasn't, for a little bit. It wasn't like like today's day or even for us back then where you sat down for like 6 hours and played a fucking video game, dude. Like, I remember coming over to your place and we would sit there and play Final Fantasy 3 for fucking hours on the SNES, dude. Just sitting there like fucking trying to get materia and save that chick from dying, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Like, and video games were a lot like that. Like, at least, from our perspective growing up, because we went to school together. I still remember when I first met you, it was like 7th or 8th grade, like art class.
Art class, yeah.
And that's when we first met. And I think back then we all carried like Nintendo Power magazine.
Right.
Like, oh, I got the new issue. It came in the mail.
Exactly. Like,
you're very excited.
Our biggest dream was to get the Power Glove.
Yes.
I wanted the Power Glove, man. I want to be Fred Savage from that terrible movie.
It was terrible in retrospect, but when you watched it, it was amazing.
Oh, exactly, man. Like that was the free. Think about it. Like, that was esports before esports was esports.
Right.
Like, it showed a kid on stage playing a video game against other fucking people. Like, you think about what that is now, dude. Like, I mean, esports are fucking huge now, man. Colleges have esports teams.
Right. I mean, it always, I guess we'll segue the video game into like a little nerdism, turbo nerd.
Yeah, there we go.
Experience, like video games and their popularity now, like, if you're old guard, if you're like part of that Generation X group that started out at coin ops and then you moved on to like in my experience, it was the Commodore 16, then a Commodore 64, then a Nintendo, then a Tandy 486, and then from there on, but when you didn't have a lot of people around you that like loved video games. Like, I had a neighbor and they had a ton of video games, but like you said, they didn't play for like hours on end. In my head to this day, Final Fantasy II's soundtrack will always be Billy Joel's Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2. Because I played that on repeat constantly because that was my first experience with Billy Joel and I'm playing this Final Fantasy game. And so, like, whenever I hear that record, like, Allentown comes on, I know where I was in the game when I was playing, and I was like, oh, man, that was really tough.
Right.
That really tough time during Billy Joel's Allentown. Like, it wrecked me for a couple days. Like,
it's amazing how far they've come, too, when you sit back and you think about what video games were whenever we were kids. You know what I mean? Like, Legend of Zelda obviously broke bounds. You know what I mean? Like, here we have our first, like, technically RPG. Technically, it was the very first, like, role-playing game. Yeah, you had, like, Zork and all those things that were all the text-based stuff, but this was the first one where you controlled a character who had to find magical weapons and go beat bosses and follow the story campaign to save the princess. And, like, when you think about how simplistic that game is now, like, a lot of times if I'm sitting around bored, I have it on an emulator on my fucking Mac, and I'll sit there and I will just fucking rock through like the first 7 levels, like, just because it's so much fun, man. Like, and it was so interesting, like, the amount of stuff that took place in that game, like the hidden fucking shit to where you had to like burn bushes to open up a certain thing, and you could get like 250 coins from this dog, so then you can go up to the one place where you could get the blue ring for like 250, and like, you know, the blue ring made you only take like half damage from shit, and you know, all the stuff that was in that game. To think about where we are now, like that's the staple. You know what I mean? Like every game. I mean, other than like racing games and sports games and shit like that, but like any game that has any kind of a storyline, any action RPG, action game, adventure game, RPG, role playing games, they all have those basic attributes now. Right. You know,
and you know, for the community, not to, you know, when we talk about this stuff, obviously we understand that there are games like Legend of Zelda that came out before that, like, because you had an adventure at Atari where you had to get keys and things, and you know, the first video game Easter egg and stuff like that. You had those things, but like when we discuss, like, it's from a viewpoint of our experience. So like we didn't have access to those.
Right.
Like,
it's also too that it was, you know, I bring up Legend of Zelda because it brought it to the mainstream. You know what I mean? Like those other video games, yes, they were there, but Legend of Zelda, I don't think I knew too many people that didn't play that game.
Right. It was very much like, you know, for the younger listeners out there, like when Nintendo hit, it hit like a bomb.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like it was that Toys R Us, like they're sold out, and your parents are running around because that's the only thing you ask for. You're like, I want a Nintendo, and I don't need a birthday gift or any other Christmas gifts for like 2 years. I'll mow the lawns, I'll walk the dogs, I'll do all the things. I just want a Nintendo. I you know, I was moving stuff out of my childhood home, and like my mom had found a little song that I'd written out about wanting a Nintendo. And it basically referenced that. Like, I don't need anything else. This is the only thing that I want is a Nintendo, because some friend had it. I got to play it, you know, and I was completely blown away. And then that, you know, and that it was a lot different than, like, at that time I would have been rocking a Commodore 64 with a tape drive. If you want some fun loading time, that's a boss that never ends.
Right? Exactly. You know, it's crazy to think about it too, man. Like we were there for the birth of this thing that, like, you know, people that are older than us, you know, like my brothers and stuff were there for the birth of, they were born during the 60s, you know what I mean, which the whole counterculture movement, and like something unique happened, and it's like we were there for the birth of video gaming. You know, like when I say birth to the community out there, I'm not talking about, because I know the first video games came out much earlier than that, but we were there for it birthing itself into the mainstream. Like all of a sudden, like you say, every kid wanted a fucking Nintendo. Every kid had to have a Nintendo. Like I had an Atari, which was awesome, but the Nintendo was a whole different world. You know, like 8-bit graphics and like the side scrolling, and like it was just a whole different thing, you know? And we witnessed that. And like it's interesting for me to sit back now and look at where it was then and where it has come to. You know, like it's kind of funny to me, like, as I sit down and like I'll go back. I recently did coin op guy, you know what I mean? That's where I started, was coin op arcades, man. I played every fucking weekend, every day after school. Shit, I skipped like a fucking 110 days my junior year of high school to go to the fucking local arcade and play Street Fighter. I played Street Fighter 2 all day long, and it was like I sat down. I bought the Namco. The Namco museum disc that has it on there. I bought it for my PlayStation, and I tried to play it, and like the reaction times are so fucking slow. I'm like, and I'm like, oh, there he finally punched. Like, you know, like it's amazing to me, like how we thought that shit was normal back then. And it's like, I think it'd be interesting to take, like, you know, youth today and make them go play like fucking Street Fighter on a Super NES, or like Mario Brothers on the regular Nintendo, because when you pushed a button, it took a second for him to do something.
And I do think that there is that subsect of the modern gamer that does go back and revisit, you know, those classics because they've heard about them. You know, they've read Ready Player One, and they've heard all these names, and then they start researching, and they download an emulator, or they buy the game off Steam or a collection off one of the console stores, and they play it, and and I'll go through like Steam reviews and just listen to like people comment on games. Like recently, Blaster Master got remade, and it's on Steam. It's called Blaster Master Zero, but it's essentially a port of the Nintendo Blaster Master. And people were talking about it.
Right.
And these are people that have never played it. They were like, I didn't know what this was. And it's, it's really fun. It's kind of hard. And like, that was a game for me. That was like my white whale. Because like, that was so hard for me to beat. I remember it taking me like a year to like, because it was one of those like, you get 3 lives.
Yeah, right.
And 3 continues.
Right.
Go. You're like, please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. It was always at the same place. You're like, I hate you so much.
No, right.
And like people were always like, like the older generations of gamers that like throw joysticks across, and that's where it started. Games like that where it's like you have 3 lives and 3 continues. There's no codes to put in, unless you were like, I bought a Game Genie.
Right. Which never really worked correctly.
No, it always kind of borked everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're right, dude. I mean, like, Legend of Zelda was one of the first ones that I played that actually had the ability to save. A lot of times it was like Mario Brothers, you had 3 lives, and you went and you could get extra lives, but once your lives were out and you died, you lost your progress. Right. It was like back to the fucking beginning, dude, But then they also, like, those games also was really cool because they threw cool little things in there, like the hidden portal screens where, like, you could run through, like, I think it was level 1, 2, and you could do that one thing and you popped out, like, somewhere there was 3 pipes and you could, like, warp to level 5. And there was a way to go basically from level 1 to level 9, like, in just a couple of boards. You know what I mean? To get yourself there. And like Mike Tyson's Punch Out had the key code. Like you every time you defeated a boss, it would spit out that like 9-digit number you had to write down, and then you could start where wherever you left off. But the concept of saving a game wasn't there, dude. Right. So it was like,
and I think back then it just had to do with not like just adding that function in that memory space.
Well, I think some of it too is also, it's not only the technology was limited, which I totally agree with. I also think that I don't think game developers believe that people would be interested in it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think game developers believe that, people would want to save a game and continue it. Like, it's just, they're going to play for 15, 20 minutes and then that's it,
Or they looked at it as like replay, like, well, just like, it just keeps you engaged.
Right.
Like, you constantly have to play it. Like, if you want to get to that end. Since we're talking about Nintendo, the consoles, like some of my favorite games, I still play to this day on emulators. Like Final Fantasy is obviously up there with the rest of the world. It's one of those things where you're like, I love Final Fantasy, and you feel like, because back then we didn't have the internet. You had who you went to school with, and And in our school system, I didn't know a lot of like fantasy fans. Our school was very rural.
Yeah.
Lots of corn-fed.
Yeah.
Corn-fed.
Lots of shotgun enthusiasts, not many sword and shield enthusiasts.
Right. There was a point where the sticks stopped being swords and they became guns.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You're running around woods and they're like, bang, 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 bang.
Let's go play war.
Yeah. But, so, when you found those people in school and you're like, I love Final Fantasy. I've been playing that forever. I'm trying to get, to mythical level 99E, and stuff like that. And then you're like, oh, did you get the ribbon? No. I didn't even know that. What's a ribbon? Well, if you stay in this one room and you run around and you keep killing stuff over and over and over and over again, then this one creature will appear. If you kill that creature, it should drop this. Oh, wow, I got to go home and do that.
Right, exactly.
And I think that was like Final Fantasy II. You're looking for a ribbon. But again, Final Fantasy for me, those games where you had the equipment and you're always looking for the next best thing. Battle of Olympus is one of my top, probably top 5 games that I've played in my life. And I've went back and played it, and it's all kinds of buggy.
Right.
Like,
Oh yeah.
and that's another thing where I segue into is like people are like, I understand that there is a lot of back end work into a video game, but people that complain that things aren't perfect out the gate or they get real butthurt, I was like, back in Nintendo there were no patches, so when things were glitchy, you just like, well, that's the way it is.
Right.
But you didn't know any better either.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great segue into that, because like I do believe that some people, modern gamers, and no offense to them at all, but modern gamers, I think some of them don't understand that. You know what I mean? Like Days Gone, probably one of my favorite games of the last decade. It came out, I bought it, started playing it. It was glitchy as fuck, dude. Like there were times that the fucking motorcycle just wouldn't make any sound. There was times all the sound went away. There was times that like you're standing right next to a guy and you couldn't hit him. Like it was glitchy, and people were online complaining about it. And it's glitchy. You know what? They're on patch like 111 now, like 1.11, and now it's fucking pristine. You know what I mean? But until those developers can release something like that, and you get people out there using your system, you're not going to know about those little issues. Like I'm a software developer, and I can tell you can QA the shit out of your product, and every time, as soon as you release it, somebody will find some shit that breaks. Like it's just the way it goes, dude. So like. But like you say, though, like I think modern day gamers don't know what it was like when you, like you say, you're just, well, it's fucking glitchy. You just got to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like we used to blow the cartridges out. That was our answer to try to make them work better.
Right. Like, maybe this will help it.
Exactly, right? Or tap it on the top, and then blow the thing out, and then put it back in. And, hey, it works now.
Push it up and down, like
exactly right.
Maybe that'll work. Doing that, like like that school age, like witchcraft hex on it.
Right.
You're rubbing it, you're like wiping it off, you're cleaning the crevices. Like that's going to make it work. But in your
head, okay, come on, baby, you want to run for me. Come on.
But in your head, you're like, you believe that it will work.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I just treat you good. You're going to fire right up, and we're gonna have a great time together.
Right. And then it's like, So anyway, the point I was trying to make is I think a lot of the younger gamers don't understand that, and it's like that kind of sucks. I feel bad for game development companies in a sense from that way, but then I also think that there are game companies who do make mistakes. No Man's Sky, fuck that dog all up, dude. Like
it's one of those things. Like when I look at games like that, like Destiny 2, and I always try to take into consideration like who's their parent company, who's signing the paychecks,
right?
And like a lot of game companies, like we'll do that thing. Oh yeah, we can get it done by then. Then they run into issues, and they're like, we put it out, and they're like, no, you're putting it out now, and they're like, but it's not ready. Well, you better make it ready, and then they put it out. And it just gets like slaughtered because like a lot of the content and the features aren't there. And I think too, like with game developers, they always want to make it bigger and better, but they tend to lose sight of what the first product brought. And sometimes those things, they don't carry over to the next game. And those are the things that kept the gamers and the fan base engrossed in it. And there needs to be, now there is, but there needs to be a lot of transparency between like when you're going to make that next game,
right?
Like what's the fan base love about the first game, and what are the things that they should carry over? Because sometimes you try to reinvent the wheel, and no one asks for it. No one wants that because they just want that original story to continue. It's like, oh, you gave us all this cool content and all this world and this story and these characters, and we just want it to continue. And now you're going to make a new game, and it's going to have better graphics. It's going to run a little smoother. We want all that old stuff plus new stuff.
Right.
And sometimes the developers are like, well, we didn't really like that one thing we did. And then they change it, and then the community is like, And they voice their concerns, and then the developers are like, maybe we should have, all right, we're going to fix it. And
right.
We're going to have that retro patch coming out like in 2 months, and everything's going to be brand new and shiny, but it's going to work like the old version.
Right.
Like the first time you played it.
Right.
And I think sometimes like people get lost in that, like especially with the younger crowds coming up and playing games. Is like that nostalgia for that first experience is heavy, you know. And so if you try to make a sequel to your IP, and it doesn't have a lot of the qualities of that first one, you know, you're going to lose a lot of that fan base, you know. And you're always going to have those little pockets of groups that are like, we hate it or we love it. But it's, you know, there are certain things that becomes that game. Like those mechanics are Destiny or are Final Fantasy.
Right.
You know, we love those mechanics. Like when they didn't take it away, but Final Fantasy, one of the combat mechanics was more.
They moved from turn-based.
Right. And
like traditional turn-based.
Right. And it was still there. You just had to dig around in the settings to like, I want turn-based, you know. But like, if you were an old school Final Fantasy player, you didn't like that. You were like, what did you do to my mashed potatoes? Why did you put onions in my mashed potatoes?
Yeah,
like,
dude.
That's not the way I like it.
You know, like with Final Fantasy, like when I got 13, I was like, because I bought 12 and played it. I'm like, okay, they're trying something new here. That's cool. And then I played 13, and I'm like, what the fuck did you do? Like, the whole paradigm shift thing, and, like, I hated that. Like, I hated that you had to have these groups of your characters put together in certain ways to defeat certain monsters and stuff, and it really bugged me. And like the whole, I gotta switch to this paradigm to do this much damage to him while he's, you know, resistant to magic, and then switch to this paradigm to do it. It found it really annoying. And another thing that really bothered me in Final Fantasy, since you got me on this topic, but is the number 13. I haven't played 15, but 13, one thing that really bothered me, it's the only Final Fantasy game I haven't played all the way through because of this. The story was way too fucking linear. Like, what made Final Fantasy awesome, in my opinion, was the fact that you had a linear story, but like you could go do whatever the fuck you wanted. You know, like I spent like 4 months breeding chocobos in 7, dude. You know what I mean? Just like breeding shit. And like you didn't have that in 13. It was like you had a very linear storyline you had to follow from start to finish. And like I actually stopped playing the game probably about halfway through it. I was just like, you know what, this is not interesting to me, you know, as a result of that, you know. But I think too that like developers have to make a decision to move forward at some point. They can't just keep putting out the same thing over and over
because
again.
then eventually you get the fan base like, you're not doing anything new. This is just reskin of, you know, of the same game. And it's that very like, it's that song and dance where you have to figure out like, you know, like what can we do to move the ball forward but still stay true to who we are. You know,
I think Mortal Kombat did a really good job with that. You know, like Mortal Kombat has always been Mortal Kombat, and like their attack system and combo system and fatality system has been the same since day one. You know, since the old stand-up coin-op game. And I just recently bought not Final Fantasy, but Mortal Kombat 11. And I finally, after I was finally able to put Days Gone down for a little bit, I picked up Final Fantasy, God, why do I keep saying Final Fantasy? I picked up Mortal Kombat 11 and stuck it in, because I bought the two the same week. So I got Mortal Kombat 11 on like a Monday night at 8 o'clock because I pre-ordered it. And then I got Days Gone on the same Thursday that week. So I basically played Mortal Kombat for 3 days, got Days Gone, and haven't touched it since. The new, they did a really good job in this one, and even in the last one, of slowly updating their fight mechanics. You know, like in XL, they changed things a little bit. Not so much that you couldn't remember how to play in X and XL, but it was still different than like the last Mortal Kombat game that came out before X, which was, I think, or before 9, actually, before the new ones for the new systems. You know, they changed it a little bit, but not that much. And then, but like in this one, they really they shifted the combat slightly so that it's more tactical. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do the cheesy juggle shit. Like, you can, but it's really fucking hard. Like, they even have tutorials in there about like frame rates and shit like that, and knowing how to do things at certain points during certain animations to be able to combo and do all this kind of stuff. So it's really complicated to sit there and just juggle somebody over and over again. But I like that. You know what I mean? It's still the game I remember. I could still play it, but it's a new challenge. You know what I mean? Like it's I have to learn new shit, and I like that. But they didn't destroy the mechanics so much that made me dislike the game. You know, I think they like definitely NetherRealm has got that down. Like they understand like how to keep enough in there to make all the hardcore, you know, fucking players have been playing it forever happy, but change it enough that those hardcore players can't step into the game and just kick everyone's ass. You know what I mean? Like I had to, dude, I've been playing Scorpion since 1. I'm a master of Scorpion. And I had to kind of relearn how to play Scorpion in this one, dude. I'm like, got my ass kicked a couple times. Like, oh wait, that doesn't work like that anymore. I can't uppercut, punch, teleport combo anymore because spear, uppercut, teleport combo. I can't do the spear uppercut anymore because whenever he spears them, he pulls them to you and then he does another move where he swings with his sword and knocks them down. So you no longer have that combo anymore, because I used to just do that over and over again and piss people off. You know, you just spear them, uppercut, teleport, spear, uppercut, teleport.
I hate you.
Exactly. But yeah, they like changed that little mechanic of it. And then one thing I was really happy with in this one too is that they actually gave you the ability to customize your moves list. So like I can go in and take Scorpion and I can actually customize him. So I can say, okay, the Scorpion I want to play has more fire attacks. So I can give him his like Hellfire, and I can give him like this flaming kick, and I can give him a flaming teleport, and he's still got his spear. So I can actually customize the move list to a point so that like when I play online against somebody, my version of Scorpion is completely different than theirs, which I thought was really interesting. I don't think the mechanic is right yet. Like I've messed with it a couple of times. I'm like, they haven't quite figured it out, but they're on to something, because that's something completely new in a fight game that I've never seen before. Like the ability to actually like shape the way your character fights the way you want it to. I think it's very fucking cool. So I mean, they're NetherRealm. They're one of my favorites right now, man. They're like totally like breaching that gap and pushing things forward. You know.
Nice, and those are good things. Where, like we said, where developers are, you know, trying to stay as true as they can to the heritage and the content, while simultaneously moving the ball forward, implementing new mechanics, you know, and, you know, creating a challenge for veteran players at the same time, you know, giving a new experience to like up and coming players.
Mm-hmm. And it evens the playing field a little bit too.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody like me, dude, you know, if they would have kept the mechanics exactly the same, I could jump online and be a high-rated Scorpion player pretty quickly, you know, because I've been playing it for fucking, you know, 2 decades. You know what I mean? Like,
which is weird to say when you're like 2 decades.
I know, right?
You start thinking about, like, I remember that we would go to the video game store. What would you call those? Like Aladdin's Castle. And stuff.
Arcades.
Oh, thank you. I don't know why. See, it's so long ago that I'm like, what is that ancient place called? I was there. But when you would go to the arcade, and I remember we went down beside the Lyric, had the game room.
The game room, yeah.
And we went there, and we would play fighting games and stuff, and play those coin ops, and then Virtual Fighter Arcade.
Yeah.
And this segues back just to like games as a whole. Like every rendition of games that came out, everybody had the same reaction. It looks so real.
I know, right?
Like I remember looking at like Nintendo games or like Super NES games when that came. You know, and you were like, wow, it looks so real. Like, that's amazing. Right. And you look back at it now, you're like, that looks
it's
nothing.
Fucking garbage.
Right. You're like, there is no reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that. Like, but, you know, back then, having grown up in, you know, during our time period where we saw the evolution from the Atari, you know, up till now, you're like, wow, things, you know,
yeah,
they have come a long way. When, you know, I remember it was like Final Fantasy VII, you were like, what is this, man?
I know, right? Like, it was so different.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
They look so real, and they're all super deformed with like short, stubby bodies, and
like the cutscenes, man. That's what blew me away in Final Fantasy VII, because that was the first game I played that had real cutscenes in it, and like you were excited to play for that cutscene. Like, I want to get here and see the next cutscene, like the golden saucer cutscene that comes up and shows like all the crazy shit going on. Like, it was so exciting. And it's like now the games we play look like the cutscenes from back then.
You're just like, what is this madness? You're like, am I playing a movie? What's going on? I do, and in that aspect, like there are a lot of like, when it comes to the graphical enhancements, I do feel that like sometimes games do, they go for aesthetics over content. They're like, look how pretty this is.
I agree.
And now we're gonna
die in here.
And now we're gonna get into Tim's fucking pissy point.
Oh, good. Here we go. Tim's pissy point. Dun, dun, dun.
This will start back with fucking Halo. Like, I loved Halo. I, along with everybody else in the fucking Halo community, was like, this game's amazing. I was fairly, good at it amongst the circle of friends that I had. I seemingly, like, I played multiplayer all the time. I loved, like, playing the campaign over and over again. And then Halo 2 came out. And I was like, I was there at midnight because I was that guy. I was like, gotta go to the midnight launch.
I'm still that guy.
Gotta pick it up. Gotta be there with all the other like mouth breathers, and we're all gonna be all giddy over that game we're gonna get. We're gonna talk about our cool experiences with the first version of that game. And I get home and I play it and I beat it in 6 hours.
Oh my God.
And I was livid. Somewhere on, I think it's the 424 or 242, one of the Bungie forums, there is a long post from me to them about content and replayability. I will always be in the camp that a single player game, from beginning to end, 100% completion. I wouldn't say 100%, just from beginning to end, should be at minimum 20 hours.
Agreed.
I should be able to invest 20 hours in a game. Now, if I want to go like super turbo nerd and I want 100% completion, then we're going to move up into the 60 to 80 hour block.
Right.
Because I'm a Castlevania fan and I have to end the game with I think Symphony of the Night had 200%. Mm-hmm. You had the normal castle at 100%, then upside down castle. Oh, Dracula's making shit crazy.
Right.
But and I understand that you game developers won't do that, but that for me is a sticking point when I go to purchase a new game. I've gotten away from midnight or day one releases because I want to know how many hours of content I'm going to be able to get out of it versus my money.
Right.
And so I'm always reading through the comments, just trying to figure out how long did it take someone to beat it, because there's always uber nerdity that's I just got the game and I just beat it.
Right.
25 Red Bulls. And,
right. I took 2 days off work.
Stacker twos and and it's a great day.
No, I agree with you 100% on that, man. I play video games for story. I got introduced to video games. We discussed in the Mario Brothers stuff, which is hey, there's this cool thing I get to control on the screen. But Zelda, I was so attracted to that game because it had story. The Final Fantasy stuff because it had story. And for me, I agree. There's nothing more that pisses me off than getting into a game. And it's I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. Even though this game really didn't piss me off, I actually gave it a 10 out of 10 when I rated it. Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade. What disappointed me about it was the fact that it was literally 6 hours of gameplay. But they won me over because the game was fucking nuts. The shit they did in there were total. You want to talk about pushing envelopes? They actually created a speaker that recorded binaural 3D audio. So they created a speaker that literally looks like a set of ears on a microphone stand. And then they met with psychologists to find out and people with schizophrenia to find out like what it sounds like when they hear voices in their head, and then they recorded audio to mimic that. So like that game you play with headphones on, like I was playing it at home, I'm like, this game's great, and then I read a blog post, I'm like, but I don't see what the great thing is about the audio, and they're like, you gotta play it with headphones. I'm like, oh, okay. Put on headphones, I'm like, what the fuck? Like it's fucking crazy, dude. Like you hear sounds coming out from anywhere and like weird voices, like it's fucking great. But back to the point you're talking about though, like that disappointed me about that game because it was like I had 6 hours in it. The best example is Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil that came out for the PS4 like 2 years ago, the first person one, where they just kind of rebranded Resident Evil. I think it was Resident Evil 7, where you go to like the house. Like I was so pissed off because I'm like, this game is awesome, right on, doing great, and then it was like 5-6 hours into the game, I fought this huge thing. I'm like, awesome, and it's like the end. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I spent like fucking $50 on this game. I literally beat it in like a day and a half. Like that to me is just obnoxious. Like a game has to have meat and story. You know, it has to.
You know, and like we've all done it to where we've like struggled through games where the story is like you're reaching, you're Fonzie on those skis and you were jumping a shark, but I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to stick with you. We're going to get to the end of this, you know, and you get to the end and there is the payoff and you're like, I'm going to forgive you for that shark jumping scene you had there. But,
right.
You know.
Right, exactly. You know, I do think there is. I think actually there has been a resurgence of good story games.
Yeah, the story has become a focal point, but I think it has because the campaigns are so short.
Right.
Like they have to unless you want to get slayed by the internet masses, like, you know, you have to put content in there.
Right.
You know, and I you know, and I understand that, like, you know, you have expansions that, you know, expand the story, and some expansions are paid for and some are free, you know, and I'm okay with both of those. But, you know, when it comes to the initial meal that I'm going to eat, I want it to be nice and long.
Yeah.
I want to savor it. I want to enjoy it. And I understand there'll be people out there who will only play it like an hour at a time. Well, this goes back to that, like, that part of me where I'm just like, when I get something, I gotta play it, and I gotta deep dive. There's no like, I'm not gonna like put my toe in the water. I'm just running, close my eyes, and jumping in,
right,
and I'm gonna see where it goes. And I love that, and I wouldn't change that in my video game experience, anyways. But it does steer me towards specific games, like the role playing genre. Like, you know, probably. One that I'm still currently playing is Divinity Original Sin 2.
I've been thinking a lot about picking that game up.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Because that's the company that's doing Baldur's Gate 3, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
It is so good. Like, I had never even played the other Divinity games. Like, I didn't even know they existed. But my wife, Erin, like, she has them. And she's like, oh, I love playing these games. She's like, the first ones are like, I think they're the first in the Divinity series are single-player games. And then Divinity Original Sin 2 is a multiplayer. Their other games may be multiplayer. I have not researched this, but like I was like, it was on sale on Steam. I'd seen some stuff. I was like, all right, this looks cool, because I was longing for that Baldur's Gate experience. And anyone out there listening, fuck bears.
Okay, we got to pause for a second because you got to explain the bears thing to me, because I never played Baldur's Gate.
All right, so in Baldur's Gate, you're out there, you're adventuring, you're killing shit, you're doing your thing, you're like, I need to rest. I'm low on healing potions. I'm not going to waste these. I've used all my spells for the day. Got to rest to restore. You go to rest, fucking bear comes in, wrecks your party. They're just like, they're like mini fucking tanks. They just roll up in. You're like, because it'd be one of those things. You'd hit rest, and like, I if I remember correctly, the screen would dim or darken, and then they would like, you've rested 8 hours. Or dim and dark, and it's like, oh, your party's attacked. And you look up, and it's a fucking bear just chewing through all your people. You're just like trying to run away, you're trying to fight it. You're like, no, fuck. You really hope that you hit the quick save button. I think back then it was like F5.
Right. You're
like, please let me quick save, because if I didn't, it's gonna a lot of work. You know, and like, so bears. Like, anytime you talk to like old school Baldur's Gate fans, you're like, bears? They're like, fuck bears. And I really want bears to be in Baldur's Gate 3. I want them to just be equally like,
right,
you know,
like just hold on to that thing, you
right?
know what I
Like
mean?
this one thing that'll just fucking like you're like, I'm fighting trolls and goblins and fucking liches and shit. Occasionally a dragon. I'm awesome. Bear will wreck your party.
That's great, because I think it's like something that's in days gone right now, is like, you know, bears, dude. That game is fantastic. I know I've been talking a lot about it, you know what I mean, but it's just because it's what I'm playing right now. I'm really happy with the game. It has that story that we're talking about. My one thing right now with it is that I think there's a little too much space in between the story arc elements, so it's like the story seems to be taking me forever to get through. You know, I don't play it. I'm so busy, I haven't had a chance to play it a whole lot, but I'm probably maybe like 20, 25 hours into this game, and I think I might be at the halfway point, maybe, from what I can tell. So it's like, it's a lot of like little mission stuff in between, and then finally you'll trigger something that actually triggers the next part of the story. But bears,
yeah,
especially infected bears. You have bears infected with this fucking virus. They have like a big fence post stuck through them, and they're like half their face is gone, and they will just fuck you up, dude. I like unloaded like fucking 30 shotgun shells into this thing, and it still didn't kill it. I had to set it on fire and blow it up with a pipe bomb to finish the fucking thing off, dude. Like,
I really hope this somewhere in there's like a Baldur's Gate reference, and that's where the bears come from, because somebody's like, fuck bears.
I'm gonna put this in here. Fuck bear. You know what? We're gonna give them infected bears. How about that? You know,
just gonna wreck people.
But where were we talking about? We were talking about Divinity Original Sin. So yeah. I know you said that it's multiplayer now. It's not MMO, it's co-op, right?
All right, so originally it is a single player game.
Right.
Like Baldur's Gate, where you have a character and your character recruits other party members, and it's turn-based. So like you know, just like in Dungeons & Dragons, you have initiative, and you'll see it at the top of the screen, the order that the enemies go in, and you go in, and where everybody plays out.
Cool.
And that's neat. So, but you can also play it multiplayer, up to 4 people. So everybody controls a character. Or
nice.
You can start a game, which me and CJ have, and me and Aaron have, where you start a game, and I join your game, so you have a character that's playing through the story. I have a character that's playing through the story, and then we have 2 AI party members. What I love about it is some of the things they did. So if I walk away from you, wherever, and you're having a story with an NPC, I don't know what that NPC is saying.
Oh, wow.
And if I come to you and you're talking to the NPC, I can't see what it's saying, but there'll be a little like ear icon on the screen. I can click it, and then I can listen in on the conversation you have. So you get this really...
Oh, that's smart.
You get this really immersive, like tabletop gaming experience.
Right.
You know? And like... the classes are just, I don't want to really talk about the classes, but the storyline and everything in it is amazing, and I'm just like, this is awesome, and I'm still playing it because I don't want it to end.
Wow, I'm gonna have to pick that up, man.
Yeah, and like there, like, I think the editions out now is like the definitive edition, which is like they added stuff, and there was like, I guess there was a story in the first one about a squirrel. What was it? A squirrel that rides a skeleton cat, and he's trying to stop the great acorn, which is like his version of the apocalypse happening. And so like he's in your party as just like this thing that runs around, and like, and you can talk to, like, if you have like, one of the cool things is if like one of your characters has like the pet talk ability or the pet ability, you can talk to animals, but only that character. So if other characters click on it, nothing. But you're like, all right, I'll select this character, talk to them. Oh crap, I'm on the beach talking to crabs. You know, I'm in caves talking to fire creatures, like fire slugs. You know, that think they're the queen of this like, you know, superior race that is going to destroy the world. And it is a beautifully built game. Like, I love that company.
Right.
And
it's kind of that overhead view like Diablo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
that
just
overhead
like,
3/4 view or whatever.
Yeah, just like Baldur's Gate, all those like original D&D based
right
games of that era. And I think, if I remember correctly, that was like a love letter to like Baldur's Gate and the throwback. And when I saw that they were doing Baldur's Gate, I was like, this is the perfect marriage between a game that I loved and a series that I played and a company that has just taken it and made it, taken that and it's like, we created our own world and here this is, enjoy. And you're like, this is amazing. And it's probably somewhere in the back of your head, you're like, oh man, if they had done Baldur's Gate like this, it would be tits. And then they're like, oh, by the way, we're doing Baldur's Gate 3. And you're like,
right.
Shut the fuck up.
Which is going to be mind flayers too, man.
Right.
Like, which is going to be fucking awesome.
And I'm just, or Illithids for all you Underdark folk out there. But no, like things like that are, but yeah, Divinity, for anybody out there that's never played it, like even picking up at 2, there's a whole story before that, but they kind of like fill you in on everything and it's great. And I don't want to give away, like, because it's one of those things where it starts off and you're just like, your mind's like, this is awesome.
See, I got to pick that up because I've always looked for a game that really translates that tabletop experience to a video game.
And it does it really well.
Like Diablo is great, but Diablo's what I like. It's hack and slash.
Yeah,
you're running around. It's kill shit so you can get shit. So you can buy more shit, so you can be better at killing shit. You know what I mean? So then you can kill bigger shit, so you can get shit,
right?
Buy bigger shit to kill bigger shit. You know what I mean? It's all it is. It's a loot game, man.
Right?
Like,
yeah, Diablo, the original looter shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I just need to, which in my opinion, they went to Final Fantasy and they were like, people play hours just to find like dumb shit in that game. We could probably do it in this. Sure.
Right. I love Diablo though because the story was awesome. Like Diablo 1, Diablo 2 were great. Diablo 3, I really enjoyed the story. I don't like all the weird season shit they do. They're like, it's season 15, this now. And
yeah,
I think,
with like being a Blizzard kid, like growing up playing their games, which I still own to this day, you're just like, it made sense because you had those seasons back then, but it was the original iteration of like BattleNet and stuff,
right?
Online, and to get your, because you think you're good at StarCraft, and you go online and you realize that you can't play that game at all.
Exactly.
So you're gonna sit and just play with your friends because you're all in the same pool of talent.
Exactly.
You realize that you've not dedicated enough of your life to really become good at those, and that's why I stopped playing those online because I don't have the time to dedicate to be competitive.
It blows my mind too, like how good those competitive players are. Like, I mean,
but I think it goes back to that the 10,000 hours. You dedicate, like if you love something and you find yourself to be somewhat good at it, then you just play it over and over and over again, and you just keep playing it, and you watch the leaders and see how they play, and and you practice and you find tricks, you come up with your own tricks and tactics, and
it's pretty amazing, man. Like, this is a great segue into esports because I definitely want us to touch base on that tonight. Like, I'm a big fan of esports.
Yes.
Like, I'm a huge fan. I got into esports because I got really heavy into League of Legends about 4 years ago. And, like, just started playing that shit. Like, I mean, dude, I would wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. and I would get on and I would not stop playing till midnight. I mean, just grinding, like learning how to play that game. And then I found out that you could watch people play League of Legends, and I didn't even know there was a pro league, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll check this out. So I checked it out one weekend on Twitch, and I was like, oh my god, this is fucking amazing. Like, watching these kids play this game at a level that I'm nowhere fucking near, but like, because that game is very much three-dimensional chess, and like to watch the strategy and all that kind of shit go on to me was just fascinating, man. Like, it's a dream of mine is to work on or own a League of Legends team at some point in time in my career. Like, it really is. It's a dream of mine, dude. Like, I love that game so much, and it's not even that I'm that good playing it. I just love fucking watching it. Like Michelle and I, my wife and I were talking about it recently, and like, she watches it. She was never into video games till she met me, and then I made her sit around and watch League of Legends with me, like for like 8 hours straight on a Saturday afternoon, like every Saturday while they're playing during their splits. And like, she really started to get into it, and so she's been watching it with me recently. We were outside talking. One of the things I love about the game, and Riot deserves a fuck ton of credit for this, they created a game to where the players actually control how the game is played. Like, they gave you a loose set of rules. You know, you have 2 teams of 5. You've got 3 lanes. You've got 6 towers, and on each side, or I think it's like 11, 12 towers on each side. You know what I mean? The goal is to kill the other one's nexus. There's your rules. You get X amount of minions every so many seconds. You kill them, you get experience. You can use that to get gold to buy items. A couple of monsters in here. But what they do is they allow the players to determine how the game is played. Like right now, the game is being played very differently. You know, like right now it's very much like all based on aggression and attack and like going after people early and creating these fights in the middle of the game. Whereas for the longest time, the Asian teams kind of controlled it, and it was a very controlled game. You know, like you would lane, get your experience, and then drop a lot of wards so you could see around you in the fog of war. Very protective, very very slow, and then you would eventually push up, take a tower, rotate your teams, and then you would systematically get rid of objectives on the map, and then eventually take the opponent's nexus. And it would take 45 minutes to play. There was like 1 death in the game. You know what I mean? Like somebody got like 1 kill and that was it, because it's just a slow, methodic thing. And then it was like 2 years ago, fucking Europe went to Worlds and were just like, you know what? Fuck this shit. Yamato Cannon, who runs the Team Vitality, like they showed up at Worlds and did really well. And they were like, he gave the speech after they got knocked out. It was like, you know, Europe, stop trying to be the Asian teams. Fucking play your game. Just do your fucking game. And like, they just turned the entire thing on its head. And it's like now the game, I'll have to show you, like, dude, I watched a game between Fnatic and G2 last week that was literally like non-stop kills. It was a 20-minute game and it was nothing but fights. Like there was no objective taking. It was just like, we're going to fight, and when one team kills more on the other team and has to run away, then we'll take an objective. Like it's crazy. But I think Riot has done a great job in creating a game that has that ability in it. You know what I mean? The players can say, you know what, we're going to do this tactic now. We're going to play this game this way. And the game is what's the word I'm looking for? Is pliable enough to allow you to do that. You know what I mean? It's genius. But sorry, I got way off on a big tangent there, but like I'm a huge fan of that stuff, man. And like I can't believe that you can now get a scholarship to go to college to play esports.
Right.
You know,
and that's great. I mean, it definitely it gives another avenue for people that love video games to experience that, other than like becoming a programmer or a tester. Right. You know. Because like there are people that just don't have them. They're just like, I'm just good at playing video games. I don't want to create them. I don't want to try to sell them to people. I just want to play them. Mm-hmm. And I wish this was my job. I'm just playing games. And you know, there's that community of people that just want to play and watch video games. You know, is huge. Like I was listening. Like we all remember growing up playing video games together. It's one person usually playing a game, 4 other motherfuckers sitting on a couch
drinking Mountain Dew,
right, watching them. Hey, why don't you go up to that corner?
You know, hey, you missed that over there in that corner.
Right, backseat game, and you're like, shut up, motherfucker, I'll get there. I see it. But and you know that has always existed in the history of video games. Even if you go back to the coin ops, you know, you had like all those pro players on the cover of Time magazine, you know, playing games, and people like in the arcades watching them like, oh man, like are they gonna like get somewhere awesome? You know, are they gonna get the high score? Are they gonna beat the game? You know, get to the mythical, like, you know, the uncoded end. Right. It's like half a screen. And then that segues into our, you know, gaming experience with kids on the couch watching somebody else play games, you know, and to the point now where we have esports, you know, like even back in the birth of, like, I wouldn't say the birth of the internet. I'm sure it was there, but like you had, you know, you're watching people play games because you're like, I have the internet now. Mm-hmm. I can talk to people that play games. Right. And you'll find a blurb about some secret thing. And there's this shitty little QuickTime video that somebody made playing a game, and you're like watching it, you're like, this is awesome. Then YouTube came along, and Twitch, and the landscape has been changed, and you know, you had like, you know, esports is a thing. Like it gives another outlet for people to experience and have fun with video games. And like you always have like people like, well, why the fuck would you want to watch somebody else play a game when you can play it? And like I think it was Gabriel Iglesias, comedian, was having this conversation with his son because his son plays video games and loves watching esports and video games. And he's like, hey, Dad, you watch football. Why aren't you out there playing football? And he's like, all right, you got me.
Point taken.
Right. And I think it's that way with video games. You know, it's, you know, people are always going to be like, well, why don't you do it? And it's that way with any voyeur activity where it's something you love. You just want to watch more of it. You want to watch people that are better than you at it.
Right.
You know, you're like, those are your teams. Like, because like we grew up in a, like we stated earlier, rural area, like where sports has been a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
Newsflash, I never gave a shit about sports. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
Like it never, like I tried out for sports. I played sports. I didn't really get on any teams because I sucked at it. But I sucked at it because I wasn't interested in it. So I didn't care to try to excel at it or get better. I was like, I'll try it, see if it works out. It never worked out.
Right. I mean, like it worked out for me because I was a fucking short, fat kid. So like, you know, football team, they were like, yeah, we're going to put you on the line. Just push those people over. You know?
As hard as you can.
But yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. Like I watched that game because, you know, and you know, Michelle makes comments all the time about how young the kids are. And I'm like, well, yeah, those kids are that good. And their hand-eye coordination is considerably faster than mine. You know, like I will never be able to play at a pro level just because my brain does not send synapse to my reflexes as quickly as it does in a 20-year-old.
Right. And
you know?
like CJ was telling me in a conversation we had once where he was reading an article that like the cutoff point for esports is like 25 because you just, in his experience, you're just not as good as it at it anymore as you were. You're not as fast and
right.
You know.
Well, plus some of those guys get like it, you know, playing like those guys play unbelievable amounts of hours of those games, and like they have to have surgeries. Like Soaz, who's a player, I watch European League of Legends just because, no offense to North America, I'm an American, go Bald Eagle, go Freedom, but the North American teams suck. They are just terrible compared to the rest of the world. And it's like the European teams are really fucking good. And there's a guy on there, he's the oldest League of Legends player right now. He's been playing since season, I think, 2. And they're on season 9 now, I think. But he had to have like reconstructive surgery on both of his fucking wrists from playing all the fucking time, dude. You know what I mean? Like just doing this all the fucking time, like ruined his hands. You know what I mean? So I can totally get that. It's like no different than a football player who can only play for 5 years because their knees quit working. You know what I mean? But yeah, I totally think too. It's a young man's game. It is 100%. Yeah. You know, to watch. And I also think it takes. You know, we're adults, dude. You know, we know life, we know bills and things and shit. And it's like when you're 18, you don't give a fuck about anything. When I was 18 years old, I didn't give a shit. I was like, do I have enough money to get some McDonald's and a soda today? That's all I cared about.
Right. You're like, all right. So I work a shitty job at a movie theater, and now I can afford to buy that game. And
me and 9 of my friends are sharing a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right. Like, I got money to burn.
You know, but yeah, so sitting around and playing a video game for 13 hours was whatever, you know what I mean? But I've watched a couple of docs about those guys and like the team houses and shit. And like they fly these kids in and, you know, they put them up in a house and there's one adult there and they basically wake up and they play League of Legends for fucking 12 and 13 hours straight.
And I think that's something that the you know, the people that aren't into video games or esports don't understand that that's all these players do. Like, you know, it's just that same grind over and over and over.
And when they're not playing in the split, you know, their day's over, they go home and they play solo queue. And on the weekends when they're not playing, they play solo queue. You know what I mean? It's like they're constantly playing non-fucking stop because you have to.
Right.
It's kind of like golf. You know what I mean? Like I love playing golf, but I don't play golf anymore because I don't have the time to put the effort in that I need to stay good at golf.
Right.
You know, like, but it's interesting too. Like I saw recently this, a new online business model has popped up that's called like ESL, I think, or something like that. And it's like esports league or esports something. I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look that up. But it basically what they're doing is you pay them $25 a month. And then what they do is they put you with coaches and they put you with ex-professional players, and you tell them what you want. Like if you want to be on a League of Legends team or like an Overwatch team, you say, this is what I want. And they put you with other like-minded people. They make teams, and then you play together and you learn and you do well. I was like, that's a really interesting business concept now, because it's kind of like, it's like the minors for baseball.
Right.
You know, like
you're like, hey, you like this thing? We got a frat for you.
Right, exactly.
You pay, we're going to put you with people.
Well, I think it's also a great way to, and this is a great way to segue into this, since we are kind of sticking in the online gaming thing right now. I think it also, like one of the things they proclaim on their website is to learn and play in a non-toxic environment, because you're playing with a bunch of other people that want to learn to play too. So it's like you're with 5 other people, like an example of League of Legends, that aren't harassing you because you didn't do something right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, you know, since we've segued into that, yeah, like I've been playing online since like 1994 with various people doing various games. And yeah, I've seen the transition of like just toxicity for the, you know, within the communities. And I understand why it's there.
Can you explain that to me? Because I don't get it. Like when it comes to League of Legends, I'm like, why would you treat players that are worse than you badly? Why don't you help them? Because then the next time you play with them, you're going to have a better game.
It's the population. All right, so back in the mid to late 90s, playing video games online was fun because it was a small community of people that had computers that loved playing online together. Yes, there was trash talk, but, you know, it was all in... it's like when you hang out with your friends, you know, there is trash talk, but no one's really, you know, at that time, my experience, no one was ever like, you know, throwing, you know, you under the bus and, you know, really taking it to you. But the more popular it got, the more, you know, because I remember a point where like, if you had the internet, you were everyone's tech support. You were like a computer genius, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Can you fix my computers? It's got these things on it. They're called jumpers. I plug this thing in, it doesn't work. Is it master or slave? Slave 1, slave 2? I don't know. I just pulled all the little black things off. Okay, I'll be over in like 20 minutes. Please have your clothes on. That's a story about me and Bob and me fixing his computer.
Bob did that, huh?
There's a story where I'll wait till Bob's
We'll
here.
wait till Bob's here. I got to hear that story, so we'll table that one for when Bob's present.
But no, and I worked at CompUSA for all the really old kids out there.
I remember back when you worked there, yeah.
Yeah, and I loved that job. Like that was, for me, I was in heaven working at CompUSA. I'm like, I'm around computer parts and like other like-minded geeks, but playing on the internet back then was fun, you know. And you're like, hey, we're gonna have a LAN party, and you would load your car up with your rig and shit, and you would go over, and you know, we don't have a patch cable. What? All right, we'll make one.
Right.
You know, so you took other cables, like, all right, we'll take this cable and we'll rip it apart and we'll plug these in a different order. We got a crimper and some things, and, you know, we'll make another cable that we need. And that was awesome. But that was kind of, in my experience, that was the community as a whole. You need to do something, we're here. We'll help you figure it out. We'll probably call you some names while we're doing it, but we're going to get it figured out, and we're going to have fun time playing. And, but, you know, I think the internet got really toxic when, you know, when online gaming started to become more popular and more popular. And I remember playing MMOs. Like, I don't know of an MMO that I have not been in the alpha or beta for because I've been doing it so long.
Right.
It's like, it's to the point now when they're like, you know, I've used the same email address and I've been on the same groups for so long that it's like every time I submit an application, they're like, hey, you want to play this for us? And I was like, hell yeah, I do. You know, because like there's always a questionnaire of what you played, and I have a bunch of emails and stuff, and I'll send them like occasionally if I see a game, I'll be like, here's all my old info of all these games that I've, you know, beta or alpha or beta tested for. I would really love to play your game. And there's a point where popularity of just being online, because, you know, like when AOL hit and every motherfucker on the planet got online, that's when, you know, you had chat rooms and stuff. That's when the toxicity really started to seep in. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit. It was there, but you started to see it. And then the biggest push I saw is like when console gaming. Not right at the beginning, but when like things you had like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network, and when that hit, because those are the things that like most video gamers, everybody had. PC gaming didn't become toxic. There was probably people have experience of toxicity in those games, but from my experience, it didn't really hit the vulgar level that it did until I started playing on consoles.
Right.
You know, and when and from my experience, the worst game I ever played where I really like just lost my shit was Call of Duty. And the Call of Duty fan base, I'm not calling y'all, but damn, you guys have some people that are just like, even I had to sit back and like, damn, motherfucker, that is cold.
Right.
You know, and I think just as things got more popular and the more people that it got online, and you know, for me, from an online perspective in the video game community for so long, you know, MySpace hit, Facebook hit, and they were such mainstays that they were on everything. Like, you know, I had Facebook app on my, well, not an app, but I got on Facebook on my BlackBerry. How old is that?
Nice.
You know, name drop. You know, but like, and like, you have all those people, all those young people, you know, communicating with other young people and older people, and like, you know, every generation, all generations of people fight between the young and the old. Right. And then everybody fights within themselves, you know, so like, then you give everybody like an anonymous online area to say whatever the hell comes to their mind. And I don't even think it's like not necessarily stuff that they wouldn't say out in public. It's just they have the freedom to say it. Right. You know, like I remember, and I've probably done some of that, like griefing, you know, like back in my early MMO days. I remember we were playing Star Wars Galaxies, which was one of my favorite MMOs. And we joined a group called Star. And I can't even remember what server we were on, but we got kicked out because CJ's character was named Lucifer after the Blood Elves or Poison Elves comic. Right. And they kicked him out, and they were like, "Well, some of us have children that watch this play," and we're like, "But dude, it's just it's a comic book. It's not even spelled the same." Right. You know, and they were like, "Wow," and so they kicked us out. So we started our own guild, and we were fine. But we ran into some of them, and they were like taunting us. And one of the characters had like his screen name was RL Sniper. And I was like, really? Real life sniper? And he's like, yeah. So I put, back then you could target something and type follow, like /follow, and your character would follow them around wherever they went. You know, as long as they were running, you were following. And I just sat there and I typed some of the most obnoxious stuff. Like, I was like, what is your Sonata? It's like, what the fuck's a Sonata? Your first target, your first kill. That's not what a Sonata is. I looked over and there was an ad for like a Toyota Sonata or something. I'm like Kaiser Soze.
Kaiser Soze
just looking around the room, dude. Just making shit up, like talking to this guy, and he was just like, "I'm not a real sniper." I was like, "Then why did you name your character that?" And just like, it was like for 45 minutes, I'm just following around some like player city, just taunting him. But it was that, like, you know, you push me, I'm gonna push back. Right. But I'm just gonna annoy you.
Yeah, I mean, it's that toxic stuff. It bothers me. You know, like it's what really, like when I first started playing League. You know, the one thing I loved about League is that, you know, when you play, you're playing with people the same level as you. So, like, as I leveled up, I was playing with a bunch of people that sucked just as bad as I did. So, like, you didn't get a lot of toxicity. It wasn't until I hit level 30 and then went and did my ranked matches that it was like, holy shit. Because, like, low elo in that game is just fucking the fifth ring of hell, dude. Like, people they think they're way better than they are. And all they want to do is team fight, and then they yell at you if you don't get that. You know what I mean? Like, if you're out there trying to take an objective, they're like, "What the fuck did you come team fight?" Because we're supposed to take towers, asshole. That's the point of the game. You know what I mean? Like, and they just, the toxicity thing, I'm not going to lie, man, I have rage quit and AFK'd more times than I can count. I'm just like, fuck you, and shut the game off, you know? Like, and I just, I don't understand it.
I think it just comes back to, like, it's everybody. Like, think back into high school when, you know, you were like, PE or you were in, I don't even remember what they called it, but when we had that lifting building in our school, we had the weight. I don't know what that section of
the weight room. Yeah,
right. But that wasn't regular physical education.
No.
That was another class all its own. I can't remember what the name of it was.
Right.
But you were in there and you had the same. You had that. It's that same mentality. You know you. Or, you know, if you tried out for a sport, in my experience, you know, it's that mentality. It's always been there. It's just now moved into this arena because it's a thing that everybody does now. It's you know, like we growing up, it was like playing video games in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You know, everybody played video games, but not everybody lived video games.
Right.
You know, and now you get to a point where everybody's living video games. Like it's on their phone. They have tablets. Everything's cross-compatible. You know, everybody's playing it. You know, so that chunk of society is come in, and then you do have. But it's always there now. It's always going to be there.
Right.
They're gonna put rules in place. People are going to find out ways to skirt the rules, or the community will rise up and they'll get rid of the rules. The best thing that I've ever done is, like, you know, like we've talked about in the past, is like we have a select group of players.
Right.
You know, of people that we know that we play together for the common cause, and we build guilds and communities around them. Mm-hmm. And later on, at some point, we'll put those communities on our website, and we'll allow our community to join with us and play those games. But there are very strict rules. You know, you play for the betterment of the game and the community that you're working with, whether it's an MMO, it's a survival game, it's, you know, competitive game,
right? You
know, and you have to find those niches, and when you find those niches of people, you just play with them. And, like, you know, me and CJ have been playing together with some of the same people for, you know, decades, mm-hmm. and we just, you know, and it's gotten to the point where even if there's a game that not everybody's into, if one person gets it, everybody gets it, and we just go play. You know, we're like, yeah, it's probably going to suck, but they really want to play it, and we don't want to leave them, you know, trying to, like, you know, on that struggle bus with, you know, a community. Or we'll, you know, in some cases the group has bought in servers, and we've just created our own world where we all play together, mm-hmm. you know, and we'll let people into our servers as, you know, we see fit. Like, hey, I played, you know, online with this one person, they had this game. Could we invite them? And if they turn out to be asshats, then we give them the boot.
Right.
We're like, hey, dude, we just don't want to play with you in this.
So
game.
the answer then is to find a community of people that you can get along and play with well, and then just keep that community closed off, and, like, not necessarily completely closed off, but be very, very picky about who you let in and out. You know, like, or who you let in.
Yeah, you're very selective, and, like, you know, like, I can go back to my World of Warcraft days. Like, after our initial group of friends disbanded, and, you know, because life and responsibilities took over, I kept playing, but I joined another guild based out of North America called Victoria's Secret, and they were...
I'm part of that guild too.
and they are a great group of people that, you know, I've talked to several of them, you know, here and there. We're like friends on Facebook, acquaintances, and they were an amazing group of people. And there was like an interview list that you had to go through, or you had to write out an application.
Oh, wow.
Which was cool.
Yeah.
And then you submitted the application, and then, you know, they would respond with your email. Hey, we got your application. We think you might be a good fit. Would you come play with us? And they would have, you know, guild leaders, and they would run missions and play with you. And then if they thought, you know, if they thought you're, you know, you seem like a good fit, then you would get the TeamSpeak information or Ventrilo information, and then you would chat with them while you're playing the game. And if they liked you, then they would, you know, they would bring you on board. And they brought me on board, and I had a great time and played with them for years. One of the, you know, the things that they would do is they would have these Victoria's Secret meetings where the guild would amass at a location like Chicago or Quebec. And I never went to one. I could have financially.
Right.
I was like, I'll go next year. It was one of those things where I'd always go next year.
Right.
And then, you know, and then everybody in the guild, you know, the guild's still going today, but all the people that were like my age and my group of the guild, like, got older, responsibilities, life, stuff
Kids,
like that.
all that stuff, yeah.
Right, so everybody's just slowly trickled out, and now it's a new batch of people that still, you know, there's still some people that still play that are, you know, founding members and stuff. And every once in a while, I jump on the, you know, the website, and I you know, will drop a hi or something, like every couple of years, something like, hey, I'm just, not playing this game, but, you know, I'm just like,
right.
Hey, what's up? But like, it was a community of people that I enjoyed talking to, and I lost girlfriends over that game, because, like, it wasn't like I lost girlfriends because I was addicted. It was, I had girlfriends, and I'd be like, I love video games. And they're like, oh, that's cool. I play some games. I was like, no, I love video games.
You don't understand what I'm saying.
Right. I was like, you know how people love food? I love video games. Like, I will starve to play a video game. Like, I'm like, food? The only reason I eat food is because my body requires it. Other than that, if I could eliminate that from my life and keep on living, I would happily do that. I hate flavor. No. And like, but I love video games. And like, they wouldn't understand, like, they understood that my love of video games wasn't something that I wanted fixed.
Right.
You know, like, I would come home and I'd be like, oh, we're going to raid tonight. Raid's going to take 6 hours.
Right.
So happy. And I just got off like a 12-hour day, and I'm going on to like a 6-hour raid. And they're like, hey. I was like, I told you I had a raid. It's on the calendar. I blocked off time for it. You know, and it was stuff like that. and I understand, like, you
yeah,
know,
totally.
You know, but it was that demographic where there are people that play video games and people that live video games.
Right, exactly. I agree 100%.
And these people would come in and like, I love video games. I play them all the time. Like, I love them. Oh, that's cute. I enjoy video games too.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm very thankful for Michelle because, you know, she's not she plays video games. You know, she's a big mobile gamer. But like, she doesn't play hardcore. And like, that girl, I love her to death because she just kind of said, she just accepted, you know, okay, all right, I'm going to lose you parts of my life when these games come out. I just have to accept that fact.
Right.
You know, like.
But too, I think it goes back to a generation thing. Like, you know, we're a forgotten generation. Like Generation X, if you look at it statistically, we're one of the smallest.
Yeah.
And we also grew up in the era of like broken homes, and women were working. So like, in my case, my mom worked. So I'd get off school and I would come home, and if I wasn't hanging out with the friends that I had in my town, you know, I had video games.
Right.
And that's what I would do. I would just sit there for like 6-7 hours. My mom's working. She's not home till midnight. I got school the next day. So I would just play. You know, I had a little tiny like think it was like a 12-inch television in my room and a Nintendo hooked up to it and like a computer downstairs with a dot matrix printer. And those were the two places I sat. And that's what I did. I'm like, oh, I'm going to play. And I would just play. And, I didn't have a lot of video games, so I would just replay the old games I had just over and over and over. And I would just grind them out until like, I could play them in my sleep. But that's what I knew. That was my version of growing up.
Right.
And that's, when you think you're like the fucking unicorn for that shit, and then you meet people, and that's everybody's like, single child, like only child, single parent. I'm home by myself after school. I play video games. And you're like, you too? And you're like, yeah. And then you start, and like until like, and so that was, for me, that was like up until like 8th grade or so, for the most part, until we started playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like it was just like you know. I would go outside and play with other kids in my town, and we would have fun, and but like I was a weird introvert extrovert, so I'd have these spurts of like just like I need to be around people, I need to do things, and then like I would be like, and now I need everyone to fuck off, and I'm gonna lock myself in my house and not go out all summer.
I still have those. You know what I mean?
I do as well.
I still have my weeks where I'm like, I gotta get out and do shit, and there's other times I'm like, I ain't answering my fucking phone.
Right.
Like,
It just goes back to that. I think it's part of our generation. We grew up in those homes where we were left unattended, and it wasn't malicious. It was like our parents were just trying to get by.
Right. Like both my parents worked. You know what I mean? Even though like my mom and dad got divorced, but my dad remarried pretty quickly, and like, my stepmom and my dad, they both worked full time, and it was like, so we sat at the house. We either played out in the woods after you did your chores, played out in the woods, or you fucking sat in there and you played Nintendo. That's what me and my little brother did, was play fucking Nintendo all the fucking time. Like, see, I think that's where you and I talk a lot about, gaming and that kind of stuff. And you've always been a big PC gamer. I haven't been. I think it's because my dad never ever would buy a computer. He was just like, no, it's a fad. And I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? But so I never grew up with I got my first computer when I was like 22 years old in my house. It was the first time I got a computer. You know what I mean? I used them at school, but I never had one around to play games. So like I got raised on consoles, which is why I'm more of a console gamer now. I try to play video games. Unfortunately, because of my job, I work a lot on Macs, and Macs are very limited in the games you can play on them. I do believe Divinity Original Sin's available for it, though.
It is, because I looked it up the other day.
Nice. I have to snag that. But yeah, so like I ended up gravitating towards console games. Now, I don't play a lot of online games, and that's just because I have had such terrible experiences with it. Like the first time when I decided I was gonna take a stab at being an online gamer, and I had an Xbox at that time. I'd gotten off the Sony bandwagon and had switched to Xbox 360. So I bought Gears of War. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try this online thing out, and like, there wasn't even anything that taught me how to play the fucking game. It was just like, you're here, go kill shit. Oh, I'm dead. And they would sit there and spawn camp you and kill you like 87 times in a row. And you're like, wow, that's not fun. Like, why would I ever want to do that? So like I always was console guy. I'm a total console junkie. Like I play console. I'm not a big fan of PC games. I just have never been that good at them. I played like SimCity on the PC. That was my extent. And I played WoW, of course, and like the Blizzard games. But a lot of those games didn't have online. Like Diablo doesn't have a multiplayer. You know what I mean? It didn't for the longest time. I don't think Diablo 3 even has multiplayer. Yeah,
it does.
Does it have multiplayer?
Yeah, the multiplayers. I can't say Diablo 1 did, but Diablo 2 had multiplayer.
I didn't know. I knew it had BattleNet, but I didn't know
That's multiplayer.
Right, but so I thought BattleNet was just like a community meeting ground. It wasn't like you actually could go through the game with other people. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, BattleNet is the server. Like you use BattleNet, and then we used to get online. Like even with consoles, but like Xbox, we used to use for all the old school kids, GameSpy, which was servers.
Right.
And that was the most glorious thing because games never died.
Right.
Like you could play, there was always somebody there on a game playing something. Like you're like, oh man, I want to play X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. What? There's the server for that.
Right.
You know, but I'm not sure what happened or why GameSpy dropped, but I remember I'd run upstairs, fire up the computer, load up GameSpy, connect to the server, run my Xbox into that, and I could play online on the original Xbox, which at that time it was you could only land with it, so I could play Halo with people all over, you know, and just play.
So, like, what are your thoughts on the console versus PC thing? Because, like I say, I'm a big console guy. Now, Michelle, she's huge into mobile. I don't do mobile either. We'll touch mobile in a minute. I just want to know what your thoughts are on PC versus console.
Like, I enjoy PC because the game library is so... For me, it feels endless. I want to play a game from 1983 that I played on a Commodore 64, I can do that. Mm-hmm. You know, like I can just run through and there's no game that I cannot play. You know, like when a game comes out, like we talk about Cyberpunk, and they're like the graphics, and you look at it and you're like your mouth's drooling. And it's like, oh, this is going to be great. You know, I can't wait to play it. I know the console version is not going to give me the experience that I'm looking for.
Right.
As a PC player, I just like the ability that, like, I have a mouse and a keyboard. If I want a joystick, it's there. I can use it. I have this immense library of games. I have a literally endless community of people to play with if I choose to. The customization of, like, how I want to play the game isn't limited to a joystick. Like, I don't have to use this setup.
Right.
Because I have always been like, well, why did they put that on that button? Like, that doesn't feel natural for me to do this. Mm-hmm. I'm learning a new technique, you know. Right. And sometimes consoles, you'll be able to switch, like, button mapping and stuff. But with, you know, I have a specific setup that I use to play pretty much all games, and I can reconfigure my keyboard to do that. And if for some reason they didn't include remapping into the keyboard function, I got a program app for the new kids that I can use that basically lets me remap my keyboard to how I want it to function, or remap a joystick, you know. And I just love the ability to, like, I'm a hardware junkie. So I love fancy new hardware, you know, like, but I build computers that last. Like, my last computer lasted 10 years and there still wasn't anything I couldn't play except Crysis.
No shit.
Yeah.
I played Crysis. Crysis was a great game. I played it on the PS3.
It's a computer joke, because, like, Crysis is, like, if you, like, fire it up the way it should be with all the settings,
right,
like, it'll just melt a computer. It's just like, and people are
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so people build these high-end set computer and they'll post a picture like, yo, check out this, like, you know, $3,000 beast machine that I built. And everybody's like, but can it run Crysis? And, like, to this day, you can even put it, like, crank it up, and it's just so resource heavy that it just slows everything.
Right.
Just like, and so that's the, can it play Crysis? But, like, I love being able to do things like adjust, like, the field of depth or field of view.
Right.
You know, being able to crank up shadows, because if you played or PC games back in the day, like, if you wanted to free up some resources and to make it run smoothly, you dump those shadows real quick.
Yeah.
You're like, well, my game's not gonna, I don't want it to run like shit, so field of view down low, you know, I'm gonna dump everything to low, and I'm shutting off, you know, all shadows. Right. Which made it look wonky as fuck.
Yeah, right.
Like,
exactly.
What are you playing? Oh, I'm playing that new game. I thought it was supposed to look more like just better. Well, I'm running, you know, you know, this AMD. Oh, never mind.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, for PC gaming, like I got into consoles like heavily for a while. But like we had talked about before, there were just some games that I was playing that I just felt like they played weird. They were real glitchy, and having, you know, worked at CompUSA and spent a lot of time in the computer industry and video games as a whole, like I knew that it wasn't like a software glitch. It was it was the limitations of the machine it was running on, and I didn't want that. I wanted that experience. It's like, why do people go see movies that are made for IMAX and IMAX? Because you want the experience that the director intended.
Right.
You want that visual, that cinematic experience, that visual eye candy. That's what you want. And I wanted that in my video games. Like I wanted, you know, if you're designing a game and you're designing it a specific way, but you also have to design it to be dumbed way down and have a lot of the features and stuff, like the shadows and the textures in the background and stuff, like just like, you know, if those have to go away to make it run, to make it be more playable on lower end systems or on consoles, then you do it. But at the end of the day, it's a game designed on a PC, you know, for, you know, a specific view. They want a specific image. And I've played tons of games where I've bought them both on my consoles and I bought it on PC just to see the difference. Or I'll have friends that, like, you know, I remember Borderlands came out, so I had it twice. I had it, you know, on my console, on my PC because I wanted to play with my PC friends, and I had an Xbox version because I wanted to play with my Xbox friends. You know, and there was a difference. Like I had better control on my computer. You know, I was able to adjust like sensitivity because the way I personally play, certain things have to be more sensitive, like in one direction versus another direction. You know, and so like I would have more control, like clicky, you know, that way. And
see, for me, it's like I like console because I like the controller. I like to, and I also like sitting back and watching it on a bigger screen. Like for me, like I like having that great big screen. Like before we moved back up here, you know, I had a 65-inch TV on my wall, and like, you know, playing fucking Horizon Zero Dawn on that was like one of the most magical experiences of my life. Like, you know, but there's a comfortability to just that controller. And me, I have a very hard time doing the keyboard mouse thing. I just have a hard time with it, you know?
Well, one day when you come up to my house, I'll let you sit down and play on my machine. We'll fire something up. You can just, with a controller, you could just take it for a spin.
Right.
You know, but I do a lot of, like, in you know, and that was the one thing, too, that I love about PCs is I can do a lot of customizing with hardware and software that I don't have that access to do. You know, I remember having a modded PlayStation, you know, that you could play burn games. You know, I didn't mod it.
Yeah.
It was like me and John Carrico, but you could go to this one like mom and pop game store and they were selling them.
Yeah,
so
right.
Trade in your old one, pay them like $30-$40 more, and they would give you like, you know, this modded one, and you could play like, you know, burnt games and, you know, games from other countries and stuff. And you're like, yeah. But having that flexibility, you know, is like, I look at things like, you know, like thermals and, you know, like, you know, how, it's not always buying the biggest, best, baddest, like graphics card. You know, it's like, well, I want my game to perform this way, you know, but I don't want to blow a lot of money, but I'm going to put a lot of money into these other things. So then you're like, all right, so I've got this, like, you know, i7, I'm going to butcher the number because it's been so long, but we'll just say the i7 999,000K unlocked, you know, Intel,
right?
You know, that I can boost the clock on, and then I've got like the NVIDIA, you know, 1070 with a little turbo added into it, so I boost the clock on that, and then I'm like, all right, so I've got like 64 gigs of RAM. you know, and like, all right, now I've got a G-Sync monitor so I can make sure that like my video card and my monitor are talking at the same speed, so I don't have clipping or frame rate issues.
Right.
Everything. I mean, the joy that you get as a PC gamer is when you fire up that game for the first time and it's buttery smooth.
Right.
It is just, and when I play it on console, I don't get that buttery smoothness where it just like there's no lag. I do something, it happens immediately. You know, I'm just like, everything's just perfect, and you're like, that's the sweet spot. And when you play on that, and because like I was consoles for a long time, like I walked away from the last time I had a PC before I started playing again was like, it was like a Packard Bell 46. You know, with like 2 Max Store drives in it, and you know, these were the days of not dedicated video cards, so you had onboard video, and then you put them through like a graphics accelerator, which was another card you plugged in, daisy chain your graphics into that out to your monitor,
right?
You know, but then you know, I got consoles again, and I played, and so like going back to the PC at one point was hard because I was so used to this. You know, playing with controllers, that this felt so weird. But it was kind of like when people are like, I get real sick when I play first-person shooters. And I'm like, change your field of view all the way out. Mm-hmm. And like, I was like, because I do the same thing. I get that weird motion sickness.
Yeah. And
I'll tell people that. I'm like, all the way out and then play it.
Right.
And they're like, that fixed it. I was like, yeah, it does.
It does.
Like having everything like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, or when you can back it out and widen it, you don't get as, you know.
See, my biggest concern is that like building a PC is a big investment. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I'm interested in playing enough PC games to be interested in doing it. That's the whole thing. But Cyberpunk 2077...
Right.
I might build one for that.
It's one of those things where like people are. It's the old thing where like people are like, well, if you're going to spend so much money like building this badass PC, no, you're not. You're going to build the PC you need to play a specific game and play a specific way. You don't need to water cool anything. If you're not tweaking like overclocking, you don't need water cool.
Yeah, exactly.
You know. I don't water cool. I have a couple things tweaked, but it's nothing that like, you know.
An extra fan wouldn't suffice.
Right. Like I've got like 7 fans in my machine. It never overheats. It's fine. But I'm also not like throttling everything up because I'm not one of those. I'm not a hardcore hardware guy where I'm chasing those like power because like, you know, for you, I could build you my system. And it'll probably run you like at most like $900.
Really?
Yeah. Like my system when I built it, it was like I think it was like $1,100. You know, and it runs everything buttery smooth.
Yeah, except for Crisis.
Except for Crisis. You know, except for Crisis. Nothing I built.
Nothing runs Crisis except for like the computers at NASA, maybe.
Right.
Or maybe
No,
the new $8,000 fucking, you know, 8K monitor from Apple will run Crisis correctly, you know.
But yeah, it's stuff like that where like people are always like, oh, it's a huge investment. Not really. Like,
well, my concern, the reason I say that is because, I mean, $900 is not that much. And I'm like, you know, but my problem is do I want to spend $900 on something that I may never use because I've been playing console for so long? But I'm almost willing to spend that to get Cyberpunk the way I want it. You know what I mean? Because I think that game is going to be fucking amazing.
I'll bring up CJ at this point. He has super NASA computer. Mm-hmm. You know, just balls to the wall, just like eats things. Probably can run Crisis, but he also plays console. Like it didn't take away his love of playing console. Like we'll talk all the time, and he'll be, you know, we'll be chatting. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm playing my PlayStation or I'm playing my Xbox." Like it never takes away from that. For me, it was a financial decision. Like I can't play. Like the majority of games that I want to play are on PC. Mm-hmm. You know, and then all those console games are also on my PC, with the exception of the exclusives, which eventually come out on PC at some point anyway.
Right.
You know, so I was like, well, it's more financially viable if I just build a rig that I know that'll get me through at least 5 to 6 years, and then at that time all I have to upgrade is really one component.
Right.
You know, because that's what I've always done. I'd build a machine, I'd go a little bit hard and heavy on the processor and the motherboard, and then I bought, you know, the graphics cards that I wanted at the time, knowing that eventually I can take that out, I can sell it some kids on Craigslist, I can use that money to buy the newer graphic card that came out, just plug that in, and then I just gave my computer new life for another like 5 years.
Right.
You know, and so it was always about like I'm gonna stack up the RAM because Chrome's a bitch and it just eats RAM.
It's because it fires up a new instance of the fucking software every time you open a tab. It's like ridiculous, dude.
You know, but it's stuff like that. Like I know, like they're all like, you only need 8. Fuck 8. I'm going 64.
Yeah, I mean, I have 16 in both my work machines.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna boost both of them to 32. Like,
yeah, like it's like I, you know, having worked at like CompUSA as a computer technician, like, you know, you try to figure out where the bottlenecks are going to be, and you're like, I'm going to boost these 2 areas.
Yeah,
and that way, if this new thing comes out like 2 years down the road, I can plug it in. I'm not going to have to worry about a bottleneck.
Right. It makes sense too with the RAM because, like, I always try to explain to people because, like you, because I'm a software developer, I apparently know how to build computers using only my nose hairs, according to every person I know, dude.
Hey.
They're like, oh my gosh, you're a software developer? Can you come fix this fucking, like, hardware failure on my machine? I'm like, no, I can't fix your hardware failure. I'm a software developer. But, you know, like, I try to tell those guys, like my dad and all those people, like, don't understand why their computer's running slow. And they're like, why is it running slow? I'm like, because you're 2 gigs of fucking RAM. And, like, your RAM is your workbench. Your hard drive's your toolbox. You know what I mean? Like, your workbench is the amount of space you have to do shit on. Right. You know what I mean? So putting 64 gigs on there makes sense because it's like I can do a lot of shit all at the same fucking time.
Right.
Like,
you're like, I'm going to do all these things. You know, and it's just like, you know, so like PCs and stuff like that, like building one to play games. And it was like, and I was probably in the same boat as you. Like, I think I built my PC to play like MMOs. Like I remember at the time, what was I playing? It was like Matrix Online, City of Heroes, Star Wars Galaxies, like kind of pre-WoW because I hadn't gotten into that alpha yet.
right.
But like I went through and like I built a machine, and then I just started, and I just more and more games I got because there were more and more things I wanted to play. I was just like, I want to play all these games. And then when you start getting into things like, you know, like Steam, or you go to like your video game sites, like I have like a couple sites that I go to that are just PC related games that are coming out or in development. And so I can just peruse everything and be like, oh, that looks amazing. That's awesome. And some of the games that I want, just the limit, you couldn't really put them on a console. Like those survival games.
Yeah. Well, they figured out a way to put Ark on there, which really surprised me.
Right, but I haven't played it on there.
I haven't played it on the console
I was
either.
like, man, that's got to be really janky on it.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't even played it on the PC. It's a game I really want to play because I've discovered that I really do have a love for those survival games. Like, I played Conan Exiles on the PlayStation.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fucking, I just love it, dude. I love those games where you gotta, like, grind out and, like, kill shit to eat and, like, fucking keep yourself from dying and, like.
Right, and those are fun games.
Yeah.
And I like the games that you just listed off are the games that like CJ and I and our little community of people we play.
Right.
You know. And
do you guys play Ark?
Yeah.
I'd love to do that, man. Well, maybe I should build a PC then, because then, like, I could jump in and start doing some of this shit with you guys, you know?
And it you know, and it's stuff that, like, you know, it's fun and it's great.
Do you guys voice chat? Or
oh, yeah.
So you guys use, like, Discord or whatever else?
We have a Discord. Like, it's, like, Discord is kind of like, CJ and I talked about it. It's kind of like this weird thing where it works and it works beautifully for what it does, but it's kind of clunky at the same time. Yeah. And you're just like, this is kind of fucked up. I'm surprised it works, but you run into those things. Hey, join. Everybody's got a Discord channel. Hey, join my channel. I'll join your channel. And you're like, Jesus Christ, I missed the days when it was simple and it was TeamSpeak or Ventrilo and you just gave them
right.
just jumped into your shit and you're like, all right. But everybody's got a channel and all those channels have feeds and I'm playing this. And so you log on and it's just like you have like 5,000 notifications.
Right.
And it's just people talking about dumb shit like, hey, I just went and saw the new X-Men movie. Really loved it.
Right.
I got a notification for that. So So I hit a button. I was like, mark all as red.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But no, like Discord is a great thing. It's very easy. It's very easy to use. Everybody has it. Every game developer now has it. So if a new game releases, they're like, join our Discord.
Yeah, right.
And it's a good way to like talk to devs and other people that are playing the game. Also, it's a good way to like get into alphas or betas and stuff, or have a voice in the change of a video game. Like it's the next evolution for gamers of like of Facebook or Twitter or Reddit. It's another platform to play those games.
I hope so, because I hate Facebook and Twitter. That's beside the point.
They have their place.
I fucking hate them.
But no, like Discord is a nice community.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's a nice community, but it's a nice place that like if I want to play Warhammer 40K Inquisitor Martyr and I want to find somebody to play with, I just go to their Discord channel and I just type in the chat, hey, I'm getting ready to play Martyr. Anybody want to tag along? And people are like, what's your name? And then boom, I've got an instant group of people that want to play that game.
Right, exactly. That's pretty cool, man. I'm part of Siege's channel and Dan's channel. Like I'm part of theirs. But yeah, I need to play around with Discord a little more. I only played around with it a few times, like whenever I was playing League. Like, because, that was like, just to arc back to what you said there a little while ago, like when the most fun I had playing League is when I had 4 people that I played with, or 3 people that I played with. So we only ever had to have one random person join the team. So it was like, and we used Discord or Skype or whatever, and like we could talk to each other, and that was a great experience. But that's the most experience I had with Discord.
And that's the one thing that I do love about PC is like that one experience where you're like, I love that. I have that a lot.
Right.
It's just like, and the community that we've created around ourselves is people that are like-minded, and we're all looking for that same experience.
Right.
And yeah, sometimes you do have to pug it out, but for the most part, we have these avenues to when we do pug it out, we are finding other people like-minded, and like, you're always, like CJ and I always joked around, we're always trying to be the good guy. Mm-hmm. You're always trying to go out there and help people get better.
Right.
Because, like, I was playing Warhammer 40K Inquisitor Martyr. And, one night, I was just on. It was late at night, and somebody's like, hey, what you doing? I was like, nothing. They're like, you want some help? I was like, sure. And it was this person, and they had a cabal with 2 people, and my cabal has 2 people. And we're just like, we were just, like, grinding stuff out. And they're just like, here, I found some stuff for you to use. And here's some money, in game. And they were just giving it to me. And those are the type of people that we end up finding.
Right.
You don't really care about the shit you have. You just want to enjoy the game and have fun with it, And so, like, you run around, you find somebody that's cool to, like, talk to and play with at the same time. They're just like, here, this will help your experience a little bit.
Nice.
More.
See, that's what I'm looking for, because I never have experienced that.
Right. And, like on... and I'm in that boat with you. Like, I never found that on console.
Yeah.
But again, like,
Well, I don't really play online on console. Like, I don't. Like, I do play Mortal Kombat online. But that's like fighting games and racing games I'll do. But like anything with a story, like that's where I made my mistake when I bought Anthem. Like I made that mistake of pre-ordering Anthem, and I went and bought it. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And then I'm like, this fucking game sucks. The people suck. Everything about it sucks. I hate this game.
Right. Like, I just said, I knew that game was a hot dumpster fire.
Yeah, well, you baited it, didn't you?
Yeah. And I was like, this is broke. I was like, this is not a fun experience. You need to change it. And I got to watch it just sink.
Yeah.
I
was really surprised too, because they actually got like the idea of a flying suit of armor correct. They got the Iron Man thing right, finally. But everything else about the game was fucking awful.
Well, having followed that story and like stuff, there was a lot of. It's an issue that I see with a lot with games. Really great idea. Project managers come in, directions change, people want other stuff, higher ups want other stuff, and then the studio's like, it's time to shove it out. And all the developers are like, it's broke.
Right.
You want all these things. And they're like, you have 3 weeks to put all those in here. And they're like, ah. And it's sad because it's it's kind of the way it is because you get these large conglomerates that just want money.
Right.
You know, the people that are signing the paychecks want the money to pay for the paychecks that they just signed. But there's no understanding between the people that are like that want the money and the people that are building the product.
Right.
And so they're like, we need all this time to do the things that you want us to do with this. And that's why there's companies like Blizzard used to be that company for me that it'll be out when it's out.
Right.
And that's all you ever got. When's it coming out? When it comes out.
Right.
You know, and they've kind of like, I really hope they bounce back at some point because, like...
They've been a staple of mine for a long time, too, and I really hope they do.
But CJ Project Red has picked up that mantle just fine for me. They're like, when's it going to be out? When it's done.
When it's done. Yeah. Exactly. Like, here's some cool shit to look at. And whenever we're ready.
And I would much... I've always been a fan of that. Like, you're a studio that's just like, it'll be out whenever we say it's time.
Well, I tell you, man, I think that's the nature of the tech industry, man. I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm a software developer, and I run into that all the fucking time, is that, you know, you deal with people in these upper level positions, the C-suite members, those people that don't have any idea how a piece of software is supposed to run, that just want all this shit put in it and get it pushed out before it should be. And that's how you deal with it. That's how these things happen, man. It's like, it's a weird nature of that industry.
Right.
You know?
I think it just goes back to like all industries. There at some point it's all like, we want money now.
Well, I don't know, dude. I don't think
not all.
I don't think when you have people out there building a car, and they're building cars in factories, they don't go, you have 3 weeks to get all these cars done. It's like, no, the cars will be done when they're done. You know?
Did you not see Gung Ho with Michael Keaton?
Right? Great fucking movie, man.
How many cars did they build in 30 days?
I know, right?
But no, yeah,
I've been in it and I see it all the time, especially with startups, man. It's like really unfortunate because a lot of game devs are startups, and it's like, you know, they start off, they make a great game, and people are like, wow, this thing's fucking awesome. And then a bigger company comes in, they give them a bunch of money, and then they install a C-suite team of a bunch of people that have no business running a video game company, and they tell them, okay, now go make it profitable, make a bunch of fucking money. And there's this just disconnect between these people that are trying to build things, because in the software industry, software and technology are constantly fucking changing. And I think this directly applies to the game market. You know, you have to build with a solid foundation, and things may change in the middle of you building something that make you have to go back and fix it because, oh shit, this now runs differently than it did before. We have to go back and change our foundation, or we're going to have problems down here. And the C-suite goes, no, just go there. We'll go back and fix it later. And then your site crashes and you lose $1 million. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just terrible, you know? But, yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit real quick, too, on mobile gaming. What your thoughts are on mobile gaming. I personally am not a fan.
I will agree with you. I'm not a fan, but I understand why I'm not a fan.
Like, I play like Yahtzee on my phone. That's about it. Yahtzee and darts. Those are the two games I have on my phone.
Like, I haven't found a game yet that I can play on my phone where it keeps me engrossed. Like, most mobile games for me are like, you're doing this thing, and here's a timer.
Right.
To unlock or do this other thing, or you can spend these things. And I understand microtransactions.
Oh, I fucking hate microtransactions.
And I know that they have a place.
Right.
But like I played, I think it's Warriors of Waterdeep. It's a new game. It's like a D&D inspired game. But instead of leveling, you level up your characters, but you also level up your gear. And it was fun. It's like all mobile games for me. It's entertaining for maybe the first day and a half, and then after that, it just feels like more of a chore that I'm not getting enjoyment out of. And I think it's because there is no story there.
Yeah.
Or the story that is so shallow and just so like, you've got to go save the princess. She's in that castle over there.
Right.
Oh, sweet, I'm going to go over there. Well, you got to build this bridge first. Mm-hmm. What do you mean I got to build a bridge? You got to build a bridge first to go.
Right.
Well, how long is that going to take me? Well, you can use 5 pieces of wood a day. This bridge is going to take 3,000 pieces of wood.
Exactly.
Do you have any?
Or you could spend diamonds and build it immediately. Like diamonds are $3 a piece.
Right.
You know?
and a lot of them are like that, and I understand why they're there, but it doesn't hold an interest for me in those.
Yeah. You know, Michelle, she plays dragons, war dragons, religiously. And there were times like I know I get really into my video games, and I do, but like there were times I would see her sit there and she would just be stressed out because she's like going through. People aren't doing their fucking wars. She's writing down their names because she was like an officer in the guild. She's now gonna go kick these people out. I'm like, dude, this game is stressing you out so fucking much, man. Like, I just don't understand that. Like, and I'm not interested too. Like, she tried to get me to play it, and her and my friend Lori, and I played it, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. I like the breeding dragons thing. This is kind of cool. All right, I go attack shit. That's kind of cool. All right, I want to upgrade that. 12 hours. Fuck you. I'm not sitting here waiting. I'm not waiting for 12 hours to upgrade something. Like, done.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just no longer interested at that point.
But I think that those games exist for a type of game player.
Right, yeah.
And for me, like, I look at it the same way as those girlfriends looked at me when I, played games. Like, these are people that love those styles of games. I am not that fan. I don't have anything against them, but I just, I forget about them.
Right.
I forget that I have it on my phone, and then one day I'll be scrolling through. I was like, oh, I forgot I had this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, and I think just the over inundation of microtransactions just I just shy away from it. And plus, on top of it, I just don't like being on my device that much. Like, I'm a tech guy, dude. I have to use my phone on a daily basis for a long time. In the last company I worked in, I've developed mobile games, or not mobile games, but mobile applications. So it's like, I always have my fucking phone in my hand. So it's like, when I'm not working, I'm like, put that bitch over here. I don't want to fucking touch it.
I want to see it because I know it's full of bad right now.
I use it just like for a quick Google reference. I'm like, I got to Google something. There we go. Okay, good. You're back down now.
Right, you sit there. But no, yeah, I think with mobile games, they are for a type of gamer, that a new type. If we're all being like weird scientific, like, I've never seen this type of gamer in the wild before. What if
Homo mobilis?
Yeah. And you're like, whoa, but I think it goes back to that experience. Like, my experience has always been, I'm in a chair and I'm staring at a screen. Have either got keyboard and mouse, or keyboard, or joystick.
Right.
That's part of my decompression.
Right.
From the stressors of life. Like, that's where I go to I'm going here.
It's your beach.
Right. and that setup is like,
yeah, Corona says in their commercials, and find your beach.
Right.
It's your beach, dude. Like, for me, it's very similar. Like, when I put my headphones on, and if I know I'm going to sit down and I'm working on our website project or something, I put my headphones on with a nice hot cup of coffee and got tunes blaring. I'm about to sit down and just write code that I want to write. It's just, all the stress goes away. It just melts,
It's your happy place.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just this
totally is, dude. I don't know. I don't get the mobile gaming thing. I don't discredit it. I don't have a problem with anybody that digs it. It's just not my thing, man.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you too in the respect that, I grew up with a controller in my hand and sitting in front of a screen and or sitting down at a computer, and that is how I played games. And the idea of it being with me all the time, I think too, my obsessive nature keeps me away from it, because I think if I really got into it, I would never fucking stop.
Right, I
just always on it.
I think there's a part too where I have a battery life, so I have to stop and charge it if I'm playing something that I'm really into. And it's a tiny screen for me. It goes back to that. I'm
Bob, he comes over, dude, and he plays the Final Fantasy mobile game, and his fucking character is just ridiculous. He has something like 8 trillion troops, and he literally will sit here and he came over to watch Game of Thrones when the final season was on. He would sit here like this and be watching the TV. He's looking down at his phone, and his thumb is just going. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm building troops. And he would just sit here for 3 hours, seriously, just pushing that button over every fucking 2 minutes. Build another fucking million troops. Build another million troops. I'm like, I could not sit there and do that. I just couldn't,
Yeah. There's some part of me that's just wow, that's all. I mean, I have dedication for things, but whew, I'd be like, why the fuck am I doing this? That's usually what goes through my head when I'm playing those.
Yeah, why the fuck am I doing this?
Why am I doing this?
I don't want to. Please, you mobile gamers out there, I'm not slandering you at all.
No,
it's just not my thing, man.
Yeah, maybe one day there'll be a mobile game out there that I'll just be like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
there is for me. It's called Yahtzee.
Yeah,
I play Yahtzee from fucking Scopely. Like I play it every day. You know what I mean? But it's fucking Yahtzee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting there doing nothing. Like I'll play a game of Yahtzee real quick. All right, awesome. You know.
I think too. It's like I have bad time with communication with people. On my phone and in emails, because I grew up in an era where like if you wanted to talk to somebody, you called them on the landline, and if they weren't there, but you really wanted to hang out with them, you drove.
You just went to their house,
right? You just showed up, and like so that is still somewhere is in the core of who I am.
Yeah.
So like people will send me text messages, and I'll be like, "Oh man, I totally need to reply to that."
Yeah.
3 or 4 days go by, and like I've had some friends where I thought they got pissed at me because we haven't talked in so long. I think Jeff was one of those where it's like, man, he must be mad at me. Like we haven't talked, and he was the last one to send me like a question, and I didn't answer it, and that was like 6 months ago. Man, I'm an asshole. But I would see it too. It wasn't like I forgot about it. I would see it. I should get back to that.
Yeah, I'm just not going to do it. You know.
And it wasn't even I'm not going to do it. It was always like I was somewhere weird when I'd be like, I'm going to do that. Like checking out in line.
Right. Yeah.
Checking my bank account. Oh yeah, I need to get back to Jeff.
Could you imagine what would happen now if you showed up at somebody's house without calling? Like people like will throw all the fucking lights off and like hide behind the door.
Right. Like
what are you doing here?
Yeah. Like that's
why are you here?
That's a cultural difference between like my wife and me, because she grew up in a large city.
Right.
So like, you always called to make sure people were there when you were going to see them. I was like, not where I lived. I was like, you just showed up.
Yeah.
Like people would just stop over.
They just randomly come by.
Right, so
hey, what's up, dude?
So like when we moved back here, like people would just show up, and she was just like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, what do you mean? People are stopping by. She's like, they don't call? I was like,
no.
Or I'd say something like, we should go see them. Well, maybe we should call and see if they're home first. No, we'll just stop by. Yeah, isn't that rude? I was like, I don't know. This is the way I've always done it. Just kind of show up. But you have a phone now. I know I have a phone, but inherently it just seems wrong.
Wes and I were talking about that the last time I saw him. He was like, yeah, man. He's like, for those like 3-4 years you and I hung out pretty solid. He's like, we basically just worked, and then we would wake up in the morning and we would just go to people's houses and see if they were home. And if they were, we'd hang out for a while and then move on to the next one. If they weren't, we'd just move on to the next one.
Yeah, and like it's those weird, like, with technology and stuff, and it's weird just how things like that change. How like just showing up at people's homes is no longer okay.
But yeah, it's not acceptable anymore.
Right,
like
right.
you got to text or call beforehand.
Right.
Me, I don't care. Like my friend, I don't give a shit.
And maybe it was always that way, and we just lived in this weird rural vacuum where that's what people
exactly. You just stopped by and said, "What's up, man?"
just like, hey.
I don't know the number of times I've done that to you. You did it to me.
Yeah.
Swing by, be like, "Hey, what's up, dude? Let's go do something."
But yeah, and I think with bringing back to video games, like the mobile device now has a lot more function than it did. Like video games like on mobile it's weird to me, but like I also didn't. It wasn't part of something that I grew up with, if that makes sense. Like when I look at the internet and computers being a more accessible thing, like Generation X was kind of like we had to learn to use it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't there, and then we got it.
And then it was there.
And we had to learn how to navigate all those things. We had to, and then the online and being able to chat with people and like social media and stuff, we had to learn to navigate these things, but they didn't exist in our lives.
Right.
And then the online video game communities, whereas the generations that came after us, it's always been there.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the amount of technology that's ingrained in young kids' lives these days. It's just. I mean, I don't think it's bad. It's just so different than whenever we grew up.
Right.
Like
I think it goes it goes all the way back to like anytime there's a new technology that changes a society, like everybody's always like, oh, it's going to, like, I remember sitting too close to the TV gave you pink eye, and it'll rot your brain, and yeah, that was a weird thing. Like in my town, they're like,
sitting too close to the TV gives you a virus,
right? Like, made no sense. Like, what do you mean it gives you pink eye? It'll give you pink eye. Like, what? I got pink eye. It's because you sat too close to the TV. What kind of backwoods bullshit is that? But it goes back to that, like, just like, I think that I don't even know where I was going with that fucking story.
I don't know, but it was fucking fantastic. I don't know. It sounds like a good stopping point to me, dude.
All right, so we segued out of video games into, like,
pink eye. Pink eye was an important thing.
It was. Kids out there, don't sit too close.
Don't sit too close to the TV.
You might get
you might catch pink eye.
I know, but this is it is nice to be back. I know this.
Dude, we have missed the fuck out of you, man.
Yeah.
But you birthed a new human. So.
I did. Human 2.0.
Exactly.
Much faster.
It's so I get it, man. But you're back in the fold, man. We're going to have to rearrange nights that we're doing this on, and so you make sure you come by more often. But thanks, everyone, for joining us.
All right. Yes. Thank you. It's nice to be back.
It's Tim and Trent. I hopefully next time we'll have more of us. And please tune in for the next episode of Lunatic Parade.
Woohoo.
Later, nerds.
Well, that's it for this installment of the Lunatic Parade Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to middle-aged white guys shoot their mouth off about nerdy crap. See you next week.